Hello, everyone. This is Roberto from Pleasant Evenings. I'm just popping in for a quick disclaimer here. During the second half of our discussion of this week's King in Yellow stories, our co-host and beloved colleague Corbin was overtaken by some sort of madness and spoke only the splendid and terrifying truths of Lost Carcosa. Also, there were some technical issues. Rather than re-record like professionals, we decided to erase all traces of Corbin's existence as if he were a Soviet apparatchik posing in a photo next to Stalin. That aside, I think this was a really interesting discussion, and we're really proud of this one. With that disclaimer out of the way, have a pleasant evening.
Okay, I'm gonna go, just like all at once probably. Hey everyone, this is Hannah. Welcome back to the Pleasant Evenings Book Club. Today we are discussing more King in Yellow, the next two stories, of course. With me, as always, is Roberto. You wanna say hi?
Hello?
And Corbin.
Hi.
So yeah, today we are discussing the next two stories. Obviously, last week we had read the first two. Today we are getting into. It is In the Court of the Dragon and The Yellow Sign. And these ones are definitely like more of the same, I think, flavor from Chambers. I really like his style. I think they're maybe like overall better on average. I enjoyed them both a little bit more, I think, than the first two. But yeah. That's where we're going.
Yeah. I'll say, I guess out of all of them, Repair of Reputation still has the weirdest flavor.
Yeah, by far.
But like, these two, like, have more simple ideas and they follow them through. And you can even make make a parallel with, okay, the first one maybe has the ties to madness, and then the second one has the romantic leanings. And even on the terms of the previous two stories, these two stories, I think, like, really nailed it in execution.
No, I agree. It feels like they just sort of like make good on the promise of the first two. I will say, it's funny that you mentioned Repair of Reputations as still being the weirdest, because I sort of had a similar thought as I read these. You know, I was gonna say, well, I think overall that one's still my least favorite, because to me it seems just the most about people just being insane with no consequences, like, other than that they're insane, you know? Yeah, it just feels out of place relative to the rest, and that it's just simply and truly about madness or something. But these were also very, these really just, in general, I think were just more evocative scenes, you know what I mean? Like, more evocative ideas. At least than Repair of Reputations. The other one, oh gosh, just in my memory here, the one with the statues, the mask. Yeah, the mask. That one I liked a lot, as I mentioned, and I feel like these were more on par, I think, with that story.
I wonder, like, in what order they were written, because it feels like each story kind of responds to the one before, or at least, like, shows a kind of trajectory. Like, Umi had a certain vision for what it would be, and then he gave up on it.
Right. I definitely agree with that. And I think, I mean, obviously we'll get into this a little bit more with the summaries, but there's like a slight, reference in one story to one of the previous stories that sort of, sort of sets them all in the same universe a little bit more than they already were, you know? I mean, I guess before that we were, led to think it was just the book itself that connected them all, but there's like they seem to share a reality as we come to find, but...
There's one that I'm curious about if you guys caught anything about it that I think just diminishes, like, really rapidly, which is the near future aspect. Like, I was thinking Repair Reputations has a lot of it, and then the mask I thought didn't, and then I was thinking back, and I guess Boris being Russian, you can connect it to how Russia ate up all of Europe point. Somehow.
Yeah, he did seem to kind of like maybe jump ship on some of the near future stuff. I think as he sort of like finds the place where he's comfortable, it's more in that like romantic sort of like France and New York, kind of like Paris. You know what I mean? Like these very like romantic cities and these places where like art and culture flourish, and that's obviously a little different from any kind of like near future dystopian narrative. You know what I mean? And I think I like him better when he operates in that like that really like artsy space. It's more his vibe, you know.
I was thinking, especially with the yellow sign. Except for the events that happen within the story, I was thinking, man, I envy that lifestyle so bad. I would love to live in this sort of artistic layabout.
Yeah. I mean, I think we'll obviously get into this in detail, but it was tripping me out a little bit that the guy was like Catholic, because I was like, what Catholic has ever lived this way? Like, none that I've known. But
oh yeah, maybe it was a different time.
Yeah, I guess back then they might have been portrayed a little bit more looser in a American context, at least.
It feels like these characters are more Catholic just for the vibes. Like they're just there for the atmosphere.
I mean, definitely in the Court of the Dragon, that heavily contributes to the vibe.
Oh yeah,
for the theme.
The atmosphere I thought was the strongest part of that story. I really liked the I mean, it was all about the scenery and the music.
On that note, we brought up Court of the Dragon. You want to go in and break it down?
Yeah. So I boldly read the intro, so I'm gonna skip this one. I could do the other story if you want.
For flavor, I'll start reading that little bit. I wonder if this is from the King in Yellow play, or if this is from the Bible or something. I don't know if anyone knows that quote. Oh thou who burnest in heart for those who burn in hell, whose fires thyself shall feed in turn. How long be crying, mercy on them, God? Why, who art thou to teach and he to learn? That's a very classic style of Christianity. The story kind of features a guy who he's kind of put out. He's in a weird mood, maybe thinking, things in that tenor, because he recently read The King in Yellow and he's hoping to mellow out by going to church service. And while he's there, he can usually enjoy the sort of elegant scientific organ playing that's happening. But for some reason, it's there's something urgent and like sinister about the organ at the church service, even though everything else about it seems normal. No one's responding to the music in any way, and the priest, in fact, his sermon's very different from the quote that we get, because his sermon's just about how having faith means being aware that nothing can hurt you, or everyone's cool. But that's not the vibe that he's feeling. He looks back around the area where the organist would come out from, and he sees this guy with a pale mask and with a pale face, and the pale faced man looks back at him with a really hateful look that really gets him nervous. After a while, he decides he has to leave, even if it's the middle of church. He gets on a carriage, and they describe like a lot of the geography of Paris at the time, how his house is at this court behind a gate in some spot, and he describes how they're going through the Arch de Triomphe and all that stuff. And when he finally gets there, he has a close encounter with at first he doesn't see him, but then he has a close encounter with the man. He runs away as fast as he can. He gets to his spot, but the gate's closed and the guy's coming up on him. And just when, whatever horror is about to visit him, he wakes up. And he's in church. And so the people next to him are mad at him for sleeping in church. And he's like, oh, okay, I was just dreaming. Everyone's leaving. It's like the end of service. He turns around and he sees that man again. But he seems to be normal. And I'm not sure what triggers it. But suddenly, the world kind of vanishes around him. And he's at Carcosa, or he's at the setting of The King in Yellow. He sees the black stars hanging in the heavens and the wet winds from the Lake of Hali.
Oh yeah.
And he hears a voice of the king in yellow, and he says, "It is a fearful thing to fall into the hands of the living God," and that's how it ends.
I liked it. No, I think that covered all the bases.
Spooky.
That's very bare bones. I might have skipped some parts here and there.
You hit every point I would have.
Are we clear why the priest, his name is just Monsignor C, and then like a long censored bar?
They love that in the old.
Yeah, that's super odd. They just didn't want to give his name, I guess. Fair, I guess. I've never seen that before.
No, it shows up in a lot of like that era of books sometimes.
Right.
When it's like in an epistolary style.
I guess like the title matters more than the name. It must be like a politeness
right,
thing.
but the way that the line is so long, you could just put C. It's all right. It's fine. There's no. I don't know.
He's actually censoring because it's normal in French, but that word is not okay.
They kind of talk him up at the beginning, I feel. I'm not wrong in that. Like, they give him some, like, a description of his preaching style, do they not?
Yeah, I remember the bit that we heard itself was more of the cool guy.
Right.
Kind of priest.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was the cool guy at the newer church. I remember that being a note.
Right, he says, curious doctrine for a Catholic priest. Let us see how he will reconcile that with the fathers. And I'm just like, I was trying to figure out whether that was like part of his sort of like overall hallucination.
Right. Like dramatically, there's the irony of how different that is from what's really happening.
Yeah, especially at the end of the story. But even philosophically, the take that nothing can really harm the soul has really nothing to do with Catholicism. You know what I mean? So it just seemed like in a way, his observation was like kind of correct. I was like, well, is it part of the hallucination that the priest is saying this? Because no priest would ever say this, you know? Like, it made me question reality.
Yeah, who's to say when the dream begins? Because he sees the pale-faced man come out twice. Like, so he could have gone back in at some point. I think he's wondering about the mechanics of when he saw him go in or out. The priest saying that. Yeah, psychologically it could just be a way to protect himself.
Was it a dream? Was that final wake-up scene just like almost his life flashing before his eyes?
I don't know that he I think this is I don't know. I feel like we were working around this anyway, but I don't know that he like literally died. Do you know what I mean? Or he literally I think the whole thing is like him just going mad, sort of. You know what I mean? Like because obviously the theme here is like heavily madness. You know what I mean? So I do get the sense. I kind of got that thing that you see like used in like a lot of like media regarding like madness and insanity. It seems to me that time is not like linear, right? You know what I mean? So like him being in the church, him not being in the church, or like they don't like necessarily need to occur in some order. You know what I mean? Because he's insane, you know. And by that same token, like his descent into Carcosa isn't so much physical as like mental. Like he's both there and not there pretty much the whole time, and he's kind of always descending into it. It's kind of how I took it.
Yeah, and it follows. In terms of just it being the effects of reading The King in Yellow, like there's a there's a dramatic pattern of things get bad, momentarily get better, and then get absolutely worse. Mm-hmm. So within the dream, you know, he's running away from the organist, the pale-faced guy. Then he doesn't see him for a while. Then he's there. After reading the book, he got sick. He's starting to feel better, so he goes to church. Then things go bad. And, you know, the whole package of all that happens. He wakes up, he thinks he's better, and then he lands in Carcosa. I guess that works just from a dramatic space of
right,
like when you let your guard down is when when you feel most vulnerable, when you end up being most vulnerable is after you think you escaped the danger.
The scenery, I like the depth he went into describing like Paris, but I was like, I don't know any of these places. I was like, I wish I did.
It's weird that there was like a lot of deep cuts where I don't know if there's a real street or not, and then Arc de Triomphe, like I don't know, is that like that feels like here's my New York story. This scene happens at the Empire State Building where they're looking at the Statue of Liberty.
To be honest, though, I feel like a lot of movies are filmed that way, so...
Yeah, did you know every single window in all of Paris, you can see the Eiffel Tower from it?
That's true. Yeah, I did know that.
What?
They angled them that way.
Yeah.
Corbin.
I call bullshit.
Oh yeah, that's where you call bullshit, Corbin. All right. I want to look up. This makes me wonder if his neighborhood, Rue du Dragon. Oh God, I probably said that so poorly.
It's okay. Kill the French language.
Apparently, like there wasn't a universal French language for all of France until after the French Revolution. Like all these different areas kind of like had their own sort of dialect.
Oh my gosh, it's a real place. Yeah, hold on. I have the
Neat.
I have the Wikipedia.
Wow,
Oh, but it's the French Wikipedia. Can I find this in English?
To Roberto's point, the dialects of France that checks out with Romance languages more generally. Like I think Italian still has a ton of dialects.
Oh yeah, and that was a country that was unified later.
Yep. So much later.
Yeah, and I'm gonna try to bring things back in a weird way to the story regarding that, but you could say that applies to religion too. You know, like state as instrument of power, religion as a instrument of hegemony. Like different faiths kind of exist in this miasma, in this milieu, and then they might come together under some force, but end up fractalizing anyways. Even within, the Reformation wasn't the end of it. Even within the Catholic Church, right. You have a priest that'll start saying things like nothing can harm the soul. Nothing can harm the soul.
I think I've heard that before. Yeah. Probably ones that are trying to desperately secularize.
I mean,
I know this sounds contradictory, but just a lot of speaking points of like, oh, evolution was the means, and just kind of trying to be more apologetic.
Right. Though I guess I feel like I don't know. To say that nothing can harm the soul like fundamentally undermines like a lot of Christianity. You know what I mean? Like how can you have a hell if nothing undermines the soul? And I think that's actually what the story kind of explores with. I mean, I think they're equating madness to it. It's sort of a type of hell,
Oh, for sure.
And it's like like what do you mean nothing can harm the soul? Like madness can. Like that's like that can touch the intangible in that way, and so could any kind of conceptualization of a Christian hell.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's true. These stories do revolve around this play that can cause like this like huge metaphysical harm. Yeah,
it's like smoking 1 million cigarettes for your soul all at once somehow. This play that you read.
Then there's the like it's also like that thing about nothing can harm the soul is presented as a deviation. The guy thinks to himself, "I wonder how he'll square that with the church fathers." But that's an interesting thing too. Maybe you'll help me like bring this together in a way. I think it's interesting. He goes to the church and it's a new church with a priest that's saying new things, but he's thinking about older superstitions, like about how churches would be sanctified, consecrated.
Oh yeah,
like half a century before it's done, and like the idea that something could get in there. In the areas that weren't actually blessed.
That bit about the demon and the organ.
But I think there's something there with how sort of these spiritual like symbols can be like charged like static electricity and then just like react to all other kinds of psychic stimulus or just the passage of time and culture.
Right.
And there's a spooky aspect of it that over time, as things become more routine, even in the modern secular world where that church would have been built, instead of like, this isn't spooky, it's Rococo. It can still carry this tradition, it still smuggles in this older tradition that it's modeled after, including, deviations from that tradition or completely alien things.
Because it's working within
yeah.
a framework, a worldview, and just working within that, you have anomalies are able to pop up from that.
Right. Like, especially like when you look back at like anything that's ancient, like the potential for spookiness kind of like creeps in just through like whatever's lost or whatever like remainders exist in like the way that you square things.
I think when you look at even like modern churches, like the kind that you might see in like the South, like the really small ones that are just like made out of random old buildings, things that exist in Pizza Huts. Like, I don't know that spookiness goes all the way away. Do you know what I mean? Because those places give me such a sense of the willies. Like, I think that, like, you know, it really speaks to what you're saying. Like, I just...
Yeah.
I don't know, like, I've been in so many, like, weird... Are you familiar with, like, the liminal spaces subreddit? Like, I've been, like, behind so many churches growing up in like, religious communities. And it's just always, like, the strangest place to be. And, like, it's always just insanely creepy.
Yeah, in ways that sometimes, like, I don't want to say that we're special or whatever, but sometimes it feels like you have to be in a mood or of a certain disposition to be sensitive to this alternative creepiness. Like, some people, when they want a touch of the spiritual, they go and it's in the, just in the ritual and the tradition and the feeling. And for other people, more often, like, this off-putting aspect
yes
can show up. Because he's alone in noticing all that. Like, it's something you bring to it, too.
Yeah, it's like some people go to be, like, close to the Holy Spirit, and then, like, other people just have to see it there, which is, like, worse. The organist that chases him. What do we think of the guys? What do we think of the spooky dudes in these stories? Is that a tangible line of conversation? Both of these stories have like a spooky guy. You know what I mean? I think they're like sort of described oppositely. Like I think the one in the mask is like a tall, slender dude, and like the other one's sort of like a portly and bloated.
Not to dip too much into the next story. But I was wondering at first if it was like a do-over or
the same guy.
Like, is this the same guy, but they have different qualities?
It's funny that church pops in again.
Honestly, I felt like the relationship between them was kind of like the relationship between I guess the one guy or three guys in the Nyctalops trilogy that we read. Where it's like they might not be the same person, but they're like represent the same person, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But I don't like
like it's the same role or something.
Yeah, it's like functionally the same dude, and I don't think these people are like meant to represent the King in Yellow directly. I think they're more like like the imps of his or something. But I don't know like what they're like actually. But I never get the vibe that they're the actual threat. You know what I mean? Like they always seem to.
Okay, I'm gonna do the obligatory From Software reference. But there's these guys in Bloodborne called Bagmen, which like after you hit a certain or I'm not sure what they call it. I call them Bagmen. After you hit a certain after you trip a certain flag in the campaign, suddenly there's just these guys just littered around the map in places you've been before even, and like if they kill you, suddenly you'll like a cutscene will activate where you wake up like inside of a burlap sack and he carries you to this place somewhere else.
There's a thing you can do in Dark Souls 3 where you can get a guy to put you in a cage and lock you somewhere.
Oh yeah.
There's also an enemy in Elden Ring that has like there's a lot of stuff that will kind of eat you, if only temporarily, to do like a ton of damage to you. And one of them, if you have like the health to survive it, it has like a 0.01% chance of transporting you to like a late game area.
Whoa, that's
Yeah, it's the enemy's called, I think, Abductor Virgin. Hold on.
Oh, is it those like Iron Maiden looking things?
Yeah, that's what it is. They have like a very slim chance of like sending you somewhere, but it's very slim, and I think it's only certain ones. But you have to get like. Oh. Yeah, you have to get like pulled into them.
Wow, that's crazy. I wonder if the people in the second story would have gotten pulled in, but they missed the dice roll.
Right.
But that's cool. I mean, they this maybe you can find predecessors, just like a demon that would take you to hell or something. But like for this story, he created a cryptid or like a little monster. Like if he had kept going, this would have been like a solid addition to the Carcosa mythos of pale figure that stalks you after you read The King in Yellow. You're like this ambassador to your madness.
Right. Yeah, because I don't know, The King in Yellow to me is like referenced but never shown. You know what I mean? It's more horrifying that way. Like if it was Lovecraft, he would have gone into detail about how he couldn't show him, and that would have been worse. But
no, he just focuses on what they can see, which is this crazy guy or the voice that seems to speak straight into his soul. Like that's mysterious enough on its own, and like powerful. Oh, and that's another thing, I guess. Like if we can say in the story, like we're talking about like finding like this sinister energy or this like spooky static that's left over in these symbols and stuff. Comparing old churches to new churches. I guess it's telling that, assuming that's the voice of the King in Yellow. At the end, he refers to himself as the living God, and
that's true,
right? Like God's been dead.
I liked it. It was good diss.
Right.
Your old churches, your new churches, this old framework won't work anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, it seems like whether you go with the new god or the old god, still your soul is pretty harmable. I'm just saying.
That priest was very confident.
Yeah, he was pretty off base.
I mean, psyche, I think, is Greek for the soul.
Oh, huh.
So there's a whole science of psychology trying to treat those who are mentally unwell. Then, yeah, soul can get hurt.
Yeah, and that's certainly the modern framework for like ancient, of course, and I guess modern. Either way, like the way that we process our experiences probably is what we're talking about most of the time. Unless you want to say, oh, it's something so mysterious. I couldn't even say it's who I am isn't what I think or what I am physically or how I feel or my sense of time or place or
imagine being the
history.
Most wrong priest. Like that really is just an indefensible position. So I'm just like, the more I think about it, the more I'm like, what?
It's a weird thing where it feels like sometimes for some people, like that thought is the thing that protects them from, maybe it's a weak protection, maybe it's a false security, but some people like, I don't know, I'll say it's my like very religious, very Catholic mother, like she needs to feel that she's in good hands.
Yeah, I see what you mean.
It helps to control or, be worried about what you have control over, though. Ultimately, I think is maybe what that framework is trying to, or what that opinion is trying to express.
Right, like let go of what you can.
At least to moderate it.
Yeah, I guess I wouldn't put it that way,
Right.
I guess if I was trying to say, let go of what you can, I wouldn't say nothing can harm the soul. But yeah, sure, I mean, sure, right?
No.
Maybe the nicest way is like how in there's a scene my cousins and I always reference in Batman Begins where he got wet and cold when he's training, and they're at the fire afterwards, and he's got his hands on the fire, and Liam Neeson says, "Warm your chest, your hands will take care of themselves." Like, yeah, like all that soul business. If that's a way for people to access psyche and stuff, great, But especially in modern times, in this secular age, there is a lot, there's a lot of other stuff that tends to occupy people's anxieties.
They teach journalists how to raise your cortisol level with words. That's what they're doing.
I mean, there's entire systems and in place.
Yeah, to make sure you rank this all the time.
So sensationalist headlines now are written like literally to like raise heart rates. Like this is like especially true during the Trump presidency. But it's died off a little bit with Biden, but it'll never go away.
Because that like makes a more passionate readership.
Yeah, that's why sometimes headlines are like the most catastrophic version of a fact. You know what I mean? Like because they want you to get like pale in the face when you see that. And sometimes I do, honestly. Honest to God. Sometimes I get pale as fuck.
Man, and in that, like, that's like a way that reality is so much more grim than even the scary prospect of there being a spooky book called The King in Yellow that if you read it, a pale-faced man will come chase you.
Oh, I know. Like, the pale-faced man is me. I look in the mirror and I see the pale face.
Yeah, and naturally the King in Yellow just emerges. There's demons in the machine for sure. And just through the natural incentives of the immediate diet that everyone has to participate or imbibe.
Right.
Yeah, like everything falls apart. I wish it was a play that someone wrote that's just so beautiful, because then at least you'd have something very beautiful. Instead, it's just like this this big machine.
Yeah.
Maybe we talked about it, I guess, with I Have No Mouth, how like a lot of our suffering is automated by systems that don't even directly care about our suffering.
Yeah. God, yeah. Fucking Jeff Bezos, dude. Sorry. He's the immediate villain for me there.
It's really hard not to veer things into, oh no, we're fucked.
Right, yeah. Yeah, especially these days. It's everywhere you look. I don't know. I see it at this point as being like less productive to ignore it and more productive to like acknowledge it and make art about it. But hey, I mean, I guess that's why we make a podcast or something, right?
Yeah. Yeah, so we'll cut some of the Doomer stuff out. And okay, if anyone has anything else to add about Court of the Dragon, like the only thing I could think of is talk like the organ stuff, but that's just repeating the stuff about the church and the spillover from the mysterious aspect of spirituality versus the clean, spiritual copyright, dogmatic religion versus, or just purely secularized pretty sounds. Like how, like, organs are instruments of worship, but they're also associated with villains in movies.
Right, I was gonna send that album, hold on. Or that song by Sun, you know what I mean? To the group chat.
Oh, Big Church?
No, that's a good one, though. I was gonna send this one, because it's literally, it was recorded in a big church, and then they oh,
no, I think I've heard this one.
Yeah, so it's, there's like a singer on stage, right? I think it's Attila Sahar or whatever, of black metal fame. Mm-hmm. And then there's an organist in the balcony.
Oh,
yeah,
awesome.
Yeah, and it's just them like playing at each other, kind of. And the title of it is from this poem by William Blake that it's just about shouting at God. But hold on,
that's the other angle. We talked about a God that's nice, a God that's mean. We talked about being afraid of God or dismissing God, but there's also we could fight back.
Yeah, no, I mean
that's another option.
Valid one, I think.
There's a moment maybe in Court of the Dragon where I think he plans on confronting him, but when he feels like when he feels him under the robes, he like completely like turns around.
Yeah. I guess that's interesting for the in relation to the second story, because some of that sort of carries over to the other creepy guy. Like, he's also sort of untouchable in this way,
Yeah.
But, I don't know, do we want to, I don't know. Do we have anything else for Court of the Dragon, or?
No, I think I'm tapped out. I think I said what I want. Like, I really like the story. I guess we want to take a moment to just appreciate the energy and the intensity. Like it was weird how even just when he was just describing the streets of the city, I felt the relief of, okay, he's not there. Oh, that's nice. He's gonna go back to his normal life. Like, I was with him, like, throughout all the ups and downs of his immediate sense of fear.
I kept waiting. To me, like, after a while, I almost got this, like, am I just getting a tour of Paris? Is that what this is? Like, he's just, like leading me in and out of different parts of Paris just for me to be like, oh, wow, that sounds nice. But initially, I think I agree with you, where I was like, oh, yeah, this really, like, you just can't get away from this guy, you know? But then I think they showed me, like, one piece of scenery too many or something, if I recall correctly. I was like, okay, all right, like, that's
yeah.
Settle down now. There's other cool places, like...
There might have been a moment, where I thought the story was going to take a turn, too. And then I went home, and I thought, what a crazy day. Or...
I obviously not that. Like, I didn't expect a happy ending, but I did kind of expected the story to kind of, like, wane a little bit. Like, I thought at some point he was going to have a lull in activity, you know, but it just keeps going, you know? So...
I guess him walking through all that scenery was kind of lull. I mean, what I liked about the story is that not a lot happened, but shit did go down.
Yeah, that's certainly true.
But now that I'm thinking about it, there's the way that we take in the church as this, aesthetic experience that brings out something in us. And you could say the same thing for a city. He feels safe going through the city because he's very familiar with it. You know, he's a citizen of the alleyways and the streets and all of that, the carriages.
Yeah, you definitely get the sense that he's kind of like, you know, he's very well acquainted. Like, he's like a local for sure. Like, you're getting like a local's flavor of France in your horror story.
Yeah, and then how the feeling changes when that figure shows up. Like, suddenly, like, how narrow the alleys is kind of claustrophobic now, or the gate, like, the gate closed behind, like, it like, even the geography, like, betrays him.
Well, and I think that speaks to his madness. Like, I think, like for a lot of people that were, like, experiencing sort of maybe, like, garden variety kind of paranoia, like, that would sort of be the type of sensation, you know what I mean? Like, these otherwise, like, comfortable city streets are suddenly, like, sort of closing in around you. But...
Yes, I really appreciate its execution. Like, he knows how to make you feel safe. Like, he makes you feel safe in the, like you're saying, like, too many descriptions. Like, you almost feel bored for a second.
Yeah, I guess now that you say that, it's almost like you need to feel bored to, like, catch the tone of the story, where it's like, this guy is clearly very used to being able to disappear into a crowd, as I think anybody who lives in a city like that would have to be, you know? And the fact that he's just sort of unable to do that has to be, like, really sort of alien for him. And I guess of us, probably the only one who's maybe experienced any kind of city of that size is, like, Corbin, Chicago, but, like, I've never lived anywhere like that, so I guess it's not like a thought that comes naturally to me. Like, I had to talk about that this long to kind of arrive at that, you know? But
I mean, it's totally a vibe to be surrounded by so many people and yet also have the security of feeling alone and knowing that most of these people don't care about you. Like, that's a comforting feeling.
Oh, yeah. Which, going back to... what's scary about the Pale Man is that he makes you out in the crowd. Like, if anyone in the street, like, looked, like, made eye contact with me, that's too much.
Yeah, I'd be shitting bricks. I'd be shitting bricks.
Right.
And it's still kind of weird sometimes, even in Cincinnati, like, there's a politeness here that I know sometimes that's, like... throws me for a loop sometimes, and it's intrusiveness.
I know what you mean.
Okay, on that note, speaking of strangers that are intrusively acknowledging you, do you want to move on to the next story, or is there anything else anyone wanted to cover on Court of the Dragon?
I think that kicks us off nicely for the next
all right.
story.
There's always a little quote at the beginning. I don't know what this is from. I haven't looked it up. I'm going to read it. Let the dawn surmise what we shall do when this blue starlight dies and all is through. That's the little quote at the beginning. Okay. So essentially, like this story starts with like another painter. Chambers sort of likes his artists, and he's sort of right off the bat like ruminating about something, like some memory he has, and like the way he like sort of experiences the sensation when he's like in traffic or on the subway or whatever, of the way these memories that he has are sort of transposed over his reality. And I think everybody experiences that to a degree, so got it. But then the sort of actual narrative starts, and we find that he's like looking out a window, and he's watching this one guy, more or less. Like, he's kind of just glancing around, but there's one guy that's sort of, for better or worse, caught his attention, and it's this like sort of like bloated looking, like gross dude who seems to be a night watchman for the church next door, and he gets the sense that this guy is like spoiling his mood, so he decides to give that up and go back to painting. At this point, he looks away from the window and right at a naked woman because he's a total badass. But no, but he's got a nude model there, and he's painting her, and he promptly fucks up, And I can't remember exactly what it is that goes wrong. I think he paints her like leg or something the wrong color of yellow, and it's a study he's been working on for some time or something, so it's sort of shitty that happened.
He felt he was doing it wrong, so he was trying to erase what he had done, but as he was trying to erase it, it was discoloring the whole thing.
Yeah, I think it was... I remember, though, that he sort of made her look sort of what is it that makes you yellow? Is that jaundice? Like, it's just like made her look... made her look sort of like, like sickly and yellow-green is, I think, how she describes it back to him. Yeah. So, which is... I feel like anytime yellow comes up in this, that it's worth mentioning, just because of the whole thing. I think at this point, and maybe my order is incorrect, I don't know if she at this point leaves or if at this point describes her dream. I know at one point later on they have a conversation about a dream that she has, like a recurring dream. And it should be noted that during this whole story, this guy is like having sidebar thoughts to himself while he's like pontificating about being Catholic and an artist and all this shit. I don't know. It's, he's... I think we're meant to think he's very pretentious, you know what I mean? And he does the self-deprecating thing a lot where he's like, oh, I'm a terrible man. And then he's got this like self-deprecating thing that I think he thinks passes for self-awareness, but that's, you know how it is with...
It's a really good way to put it.
Anyway, but he has this interesting sort of relationship pretty evidently immediately with his model. You know what I mean? But she's talking about this dream that she has, this recurring dream, where she's at home in her apartment and she's asleep, right? And she wakes up and she gets up and stands before the window, but there's nobody outside, And this hearse comes rolling down the block super slow, right? And it's dark and there's nobody out there. It's the middle of the night. Super creepy. Like some of the most creepy, just like atmospheric imagery you could probably just get right off the bat, And then the hearse pulls up, and in the back of the hearse is like a glass coffin, right? Like a case made of glass. And in that case is the narrator, this artist, And I think she goes on to indicate that the person driving the hearse is the guy that's outside, And at this point, the artist guy, he kind of like dispels this. He's like, no, that's stupid. You know what I mean? You got to chill out, I think
he does because she ate too much crab.
Yeah, he said she, like, fell asleep with a stomach full of lobster or something, which is, like, I have fallen asleep with a lot harder shit in my stomach than lobster, let me tell you, and I've not dreamed much like that, I think he kind of sends her home. He's like, hey, why don't you just go rest up, And a while later, they get started on another piece. There's sort of a situation, though, and again, it's going much better this time, where our narrator, because he's kind of like I don't know, he just wants to like push the envelope a little bit. He's like, hey, guess what I had a dream about, And then he proceeds to tell her about his dream in which he sort of awakes in a box and can't move, and then slowly realizes that he can see through the box and looks out and he's in a hearse and he's being driven past,
Her window.
her apartment there. Yeah, right. And she's looking out the window, And his purpose in telling her this, and ironically, at first I wasn't sure whether he's sincere or not, but he seems to actually be sincere. But for some reason, his purpose in telling her this is to calm her down. Like, look, everybody has crazy dreams, but because the dream is like a perfect like interlocking for hers, of course that freaks her out more, So they go about it, and at one point, I can't remember under what context this occurs, but she sort of confesses that she like loves him. I think it's out of worry about the guy down in the yard who's still down there,
Yeah.
I guess he's the night watchman at the church or whatever, so he's bound to be around. But like a big part of this is just him sitting out there and like being creepy, So he's like out of just like out of just whatever, our narrator just decides to make out with her. I mean, he's like I don't know. He's exactly the kind of guy who's just gonna like definitely make out with somebody, if they confess feelings, without really thinking about the consequences either from what immediately follows. But
yeah, until later, he does seem to be pretty like when he's thinking about it later, he seems to be pretty.
Well, yeah, that's what I mean.
himself
I said until
about
what immediately follows, because I think he then sends her home again and goes for a walk, And while he's walking, he's like kind of having like these meditations on like what he's going to do about this, right? And his decision ultimately is, I think still that he made the right choice somehow. But he's like, well, either she'll lose interest with me, which would be ideal, or I don't know, sooner or later I'll break her heart. And he's like, but at least I'll be able to, at least it'll be me doing it. And, I'll look out for her until that happens, is kind of the conclusion that he comes to. But I think at some point during this walk, he starts talking to like a kid, right? Like a young boy, from the neighborhood. And he starts kind of asking about that guy, because obviously this guy is pretty creepy. And it seems like everybody is aware of this, unlike in the previous story where only our narrator seems to be like, like stuck in it. But he's like, yeah, I saw that guy. He's super fucked up. I got really pissed at him. I went to like hit him. I grabbed his hand and his finger came off in my hand, right? Like he was made out of like squishy, like he was made out of like cold, like Laffy Taffy or something, And this, of course, is like weird as shit. But the narrator doesn't seem to think much of it, except that it's super fucked up, because he goes home and then his new girlfriend comes over and she brings him like a present or something. And it's this little black clasp, with a strange symbol on it, And then, so they're painting or what have you. And at one point, he goes looking for a book, I think. And as he's looking, he sees a book on his top shelf and he's like, I don't know what the fuck that is, So he calls his girlfriend over, and I guess she climbs the ladder because he can't for some reason. I don't know. I was a little unclear on that. But she gets the book down, and she's like, oh, it's The King in Yellow. And he's immediately like, what the fuck? Because he didn't get that book anywhere, Long story short, they both read the book, go like insane as hell. This creepy guy somehow hovers into their room with them, like transcends like through the body of the narrator and like engulfs him, right? And then the next thing we find out is that he's in the hospital. His girlfriend, what's her name? Is it Tessie?
Tessie.
I think it's Tessie. Yeah, Tessie. I don't remember his name at all.
Man,
Nothing.
Mr. Man.
Yeah, Mr. Dude. Mr.
Painter guy.
Yeah, I don't know. He thinks he's so cool. Anyway. Anyway, and what's clear to him as when he wakes up is that he's dying too. You know what I mean? And that's about the story. It's weird because there's this like there's kind of two things going on. You know what I mean? There's the romance and then there's the supernatural aspect. And sometimes I don't know if I like did this well in my narration of it, my like quick recreation, but they seem to like follow almost different tracks until they collide, you know? Sometimes he's just entirely in the world of the romance, and other times he's like entirely in the world of the creepy guy, you know? And sometimes I could get like into a train of thought where I forget about the other, you know? But that's more an observation than a part of the summary. I don't know.
I guess he just is like impulsive in that sort of way, where it starts with him thinking like, well, how come when I look at something it takes me back to these other memories? Why does this Broadway make me think of a forest in Breton forest?
Yeah, I forgot to mention that like a lot of his flashbacks and memories are his like ex-girlfriend who is also insanely Catholic, and their time together in Breton forests.
Yeah, and like that's and it's weird because he's impulsive. Like he when he kisses her in the room, it's because all that exists is her feelings and them in the room at that moment. But then later, part of why he knows he's not gonna be a good boyfriend to Tessie is because he's still in love with this woman. And
what is it she says at the very beginning? To think that this is also a little ward of God.
Right, a lizard.
She says to a lizard. I know. I was like, for some reason, I could just like I've heard that. I just like I know people who think that way. Like I've heard that exact phrase uttered somehow.
I like it.
I like it too. I don't dislike it at all. And it's not the religious people that I'm talking about when I say I know people who think that way. It's the people who see like small wonder in things. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. Like I guess like it can be a pretty corny thing, but it it ties into the whole like everything is connected kind of thing. Like there are invisible threads pulling at you at every direction. Like if the last story is like a normal world until like whatever's spooky is brought out by the book. In this one, it feels like the spookiness is there before even, before he reads it. Like the book doesn't come till the end, but that guy's following him around. And I think even before he gets the present from Tessie, like the watchman like speaks to him and like just mumbles something, and then until he's walking away, he remembers what he realized that he was saying, like, have you found the yellow sign? Have you seen the yellow sign?
Yeah. But I remember it throws him into a rage now that you say that. Like, he gets really upset about it. But it's sort of a slow burn. Like, he goes home, he sits on that couch, like, slowly he gets pissed that this guy asked him this. But, well, I guess, now that you say it, I never really stopped to ask myself, like, why them, Like, what have they done to deserve this? Like, who's really got it out for these two people in particular,
I guess it's a cop-out to say it's destiny. But like the way that the tragedy feels so random in The Mask. Like I guess it's set up with the guy's experiments.
Yeah, so first of all, he has a copy of that book, and at least in that story. And I didn't get the sense that it was like it appeared there like it did in this story in the Yellow Sign. I got the sense that he had that shit. You know what I mean? Like, he just didn't talk about it, But maybe that's just me reading into something that isn't there.
Yeah.
But, I mean, he was an alchemist, Like, it just seemed to me like he was up to some funny shit, in spite of himself.
Like, that one is like I guess like you can be like naive about dangers, think you have things under control, and then something horrible could happen. Like there's like degrees of paranoia, like or like of danger. There's this dangerous thing, and you could fall into it. Or, if you cross this line, then then these forces will retaliate. Will come, will respond to it. In the Court of the Dragon, and then here it's even more sinister where. I don't know if it's just because of who he is. Because at the end, like even if they're being targeted, if these things are coming together, like the yellow sign and that guy that's looking at them and the dreams that visit them, they still choose to read the King in Yellow.
Yeah, that's true. And he considers at one point throwing the thing into the fire, the clasp. And he doesn't, for some reason, I guess. Though
Yeah, and he says he can't explain why he doesn't.
I kind of like, again, like this is like the second time we've talked about like weirdly romantic scenes, like things that are like kind of fucked up in a romantic way, but the way that they like kind of end their lives just murmuring together about the King in Yellow, I was like, oh, in a fucked up way, that's kind of sweet, you know? Like,
Yeah, no, there's definitely a tie
Right.
there. I think for sure there's a. It's like a bit of like redemption, or I don't know. Like there's a leveling of the playing field. Like he, for some reason, he can only justify to himself after, a lot of mental gymnastics later,
Right.
kisses her. Like, really just like at an impulse because of who he is. Like going back to like because of like the type of person to pick up the book
He's
and
such
read
a
it. Maybe
shithead. Anyway.
that like set him on a path where he's like, okay, look, now this is gonna be like that. But it's more, he's very paternal. Like he thinks he's gonna like navigate like fly the plane to like
Right.
the best emergency landing he can. Like he thinks he's gonna like handle the situation. But then when they both read the book, they're on the same like mind space. Like they're both just talking about the King in Yellow and Carcosa and the Pallid Mask or whatever. Like they're just in it together.
Have you ever been with somebody that you're dating and it's like 6 a.m. and you are both burned the fuck out on acid? It's like exactly like that, where you're just like muttering to each other about nonsense. Like, I don't know. It's definitely an experience I've had in my life, but that's what it felt like to me. I was just like,
I think the order, like she grabbed the book and reads it, and while she's like recovering from the fever, that I guess now we can say that's a pattern. You read the book, you get a fever.
oh yeah,
While she's recovering from they decided a pale man follows you in the last two stories, but for sure a fever.
right.
But while she's recovering, he just sits down and reads it end to end.
There's a bit of
Like-
a Adam and Eve kind of dynamic there. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, but she doesn't tell him to read it. She just reads it, passes out, and then
That's a good point.
I wonder if that's like his way of being like, I'm going in this with you. Like you came to my place and you picked it up.
I think it's more just like disbelief at that point. He's like, yo, she read this book and she like went straight unconscious. Like, what could possibly be in here? And I know he says that he's like aware of it all, but like to see it in practice, I mean, I'm sorry. If I read a book in front of you and then passed the fuck out, you would be like, what is in that book? You know? It's so surreal. It's not. I mean, obviously, this is a fictional book, but like, you know what I mean. Like, if you were to like transpose that to reality, like, of course you'd want. Like, you'd be like, what could possibly be in there? You know?
I think the book, like when he goes to read it, I think he just describes the actions he took. Like, I wish there was more
Yeah.
to go into like in what way he did, but there's room for that kind of like or this sort of like I just got to catch up to her so we can listen.
Yeah.
Space, or the destiny aspect of this thing is coming for it ended up in there. He can't not
Right.
read it because it's there.
Yeah, I guess I don't know. And if I was gonna like maybe like throw one criticism at this story, it's that it feels like it's missing one or two details around the end. You know what I mean? But I don't know, like it's hard for me to bitch about something like that because a lot of stuff is left intentionally vague and things like this. But like if one or two more bones thrown our way, like even like vague ones would have been chill. You know what I mean? Like I think it's telling that for like you said that we're not told, you know, what he's thinking in that moment. You know what I mean? Like it almost just seems like I don't know, like where's that information? You know, like what are we supposed to take from this? But
Yeah, just from like I guess like what like describing it in that way makes me think he is in a
right.
state when he does it. Like it's not about the way you justify it to yourself, but just in the way that you simply do it, like the way that he kissed
Well,
that he kissed her.
it's about the sheer power of the thing. Well, I don't think you want it, right? Like, I don't think it's something that you seek, but it hits this, like, primal thing, like, where it's, like, too powerful to not be examined, Like, especially if you recognize what it is, Like, I think just seeing it compelled him to read it, because it's like, oh, fuck, that's the thing,
Like, the only thing I can think, like, in the Repair of Reputations, Louis sees it and has no...
Yeah, that's true.
No desire for it.
Yeah, it should be noted that, like, most of the victims of it are, like, artists or artsy people, at least so far, right? And that's Lovecraft sort of dips into that, too. Like, it's always the sensitive people, that get the...
Yeah. This, like, ring of power quality, like, attraction. Or if it didn't, it still makes sense for that character to read it.
Yeah, it kind of does. Yeah. I wish we knew why he read it, because you could definitely still make a couple good claims as to his reasoning, but...
When he shares the dream, that's another moment where he says, like, I don't know why I did it. Like, he says, like, he opened his mouth, and then he regretted it. And then he gives the explanation that it was to make her feel better.
Right, yeah, that whole thing was... I don't know. I guess we're seeing more and more evidence of, like, the destiny kind of thing coming into play, but maybe the whole thing is about sort of like a, like how much of destiny is truly destiny and how much of it do we just, like, manifest ourselves, through, like, just, like, our thoughts and actions.
Right. Yeah, like I that's really cool, like, tying it with the romance.
Right. I didn't even think of that when I said that.
It's like, that's where, like, you see, like, action happening. Because I was going to say before, just the reality of the artist. Like, we can think of a way to tie in Repair Reputations, but we have Boris, who's, like, an artist, and, like, we were joking around about him being the guy who wrote King in Yellow.
Right, yeah.
And bringing all this out, and I guess the guy in Court of the Dragon is an architect. He's at least certainly, like, a curious guy. And then in this one, again, it's an artist who... like, exposes people to things, even things that he doesn't intend. Things that he's only vaguely aware of, he doesn't even know are in his house. And I have to wonder, like, as an artist, sometimes, like, there is intentionality, but a lot of it also is from the muses, or just, like, what comes out.
That's definitely true.
Through you. Like there's a scary question at the center of the King in Yellow, is, like, can a piece of art, like, harm your soul?
Oh, hey. There it is.
Oh shit, I was just talking... Yeah, cool. We got to that naturally. Speaking of the impulse.
Yeah, alright, end podcast there. Okay. Mic drop. No, you nailed it. That's dead on.
Oh, yeah, let's follow this thread a little bit. Yeah, I'm thinking too, now going back to Court of the Dragon, maybe, like, he's an architect, or, like, he reads architect books. He's at least, like, an aesthete. But then we can put the thing on the people who built the cathedral, who, consecrate half of it, and then the rest is up, like, for this specific spiritual purpose, and the rest is up to whatever demons wander in.
Yeah, I think we're supposed to realize that art can harm your soul. I think it absolutely can. I think that's, like, yeah, duh. Like, It's like an ugly thought because we all like art, but I've had this thought that I think is unpopular about things like the Joker movie. You know what I mean? Like the recent one, which I need to, like, preface this. I haven't seen it. I've heard it's very good, and I don't doubt that. But, like, when I think about like the responsibility of an artist, and again, like, not that they have many, or maybe they should. But, like, I always thought it was a weird choice to make a Joker movie in the year that came out in.
But it sounds like the most appropriate thing. It's responding to the moment.
That's true to a degree, but the other thing is, like just, like, knowing your audience, like, is really important too. And I also felt like I don't know. I have this, like, really, like, just, like, anecdotal story about this and, like, the kind of people who see superhero movies, but, like, at my old job one time, I was, like, walking back in after my smoke break, and the CFO of our company, this, like, dude, and his, like, two sons who worked up there with him came out, and, I'm not going to name anybody or even the company, But they were talking about what movie they were going to go see after work. They would always leave at like 3:30 to go see movies because they were just, I don't know, it was like the CFO and his son. So of course they did, you know. And one of them was like, I heard that new Joker movie came out, and like the head one, the big one, said, that sounds like it'd be good. And then the other one said, like, I heard that was one of those movies with like a lot of plot though. And then they all groaned and got in the truck. They all groaned and got in the truck. Like, so that's what I'm saying. Like, I just like that's why it was an enigmatic choice for me, because you're not releasing a movie that's gonna be viewed like the piece of art that it probably is. You're gonna release a movie that like all these fools are gonna go see. Like, it's a Joker movie. It's Batman. You know what I mean? Like, and it's in the year 2020, like, or whatever. Like 2019. What year was that? It was still a bad time, regardless.
2019, I think. But let me tie this to our King and Yellow stories. The CFO's sons are like Louis, and then like the incels that got Proud Boys about it are like what's his name? The guy who goes crazy. And
well, in a way, the CFO and his sons are probably more harmless, but the fact that they exist, it definitely implies the existence of the Hedwig or whatever. You know what I mean? Like the because that movie came out, and again, I'm not like an advocate for censorship. You know, I would never say like you can't release this movie. I would just say that maybe like if you were thinking really hard about it, you would maybe know that there's a time and a place. But I'm pretty sure it was like sandwiched between school shootings too. Like, I was like, whoa, this is a choice. Like,
yeah, it's possible that some works of art do more harm than good. Like,
and I haven't seen that movie. I don't want to say anything about what it actually is. I just mean the optics and like the timing. You know?
Yeah, like sub that in for the Turner Diaries or Triumph of the Will or Birth of a Nation. Like, there's definitely like art is power, and is like has a power and like can be like go out of control. Like Fight Club and American Psycho are criticisms of a certain like type of male violence, but some men just love the violence of it.
Rick and Morty is like, I think the best is the best example of this in our modern age. Like, I don't know, like, other than Fight Club outright, but yeah, Fight Club's actually the best example. But Rick and Morty is a good one. I don't know.
Right, like Pickle Rick is all about escapism, and then it just became the symbol, like the thing that people escape into.
It was supposed to be clear, I think, from minute one that was a bad joke, but like, I don't know, it was not so clear based on the immediate reaction and the Hot Topic T-shirts, you know. Not that I took that much psychic damage from Pickle Rick, though I'll swear that I did.
Yeah, like, I mean, the book is like this book is like, these King and Yellow stories are definitely like raising that question. Like because I definitely agree with that certain things can just hit the wrong way even if they're well intentioned.
Yeah.
And like the point of art is that there's a power that even the artist can't control. Like, I like these weird horror stories because I feel like by becoming scary, it makes you like experience the idea more viscerally or take it seriously in a way that isn't like philosopher serious, but serious in a direct sort of way, where just the idea of art having this ability to transform and transcending the life of the artist. Yeah, in that sense, I think it's cool that they started with Repair Reputations, like this kind of silly story.
right.
But it's
interestingly, I gotta say the only artist in that is the blacksmith, right? Do we call blacksmithing an art? I guess we have to. But anyway, I don't want to cut you off. Go ahead.
Besides that, yeah, it's just people that read things, and it's just this guy who's a reader, and I'm saying this as a pun. I wish I had a more elegant way of saying it, but the titular Repair Reputation is kind of a bullshit artist.
I agree with that.
Like there's a beautiful creative aspect of, in culture of creating art, and then there's, okay, so there's a podcast where we talk about art other people made. So, but there's also like little fleas that jump on top of it and just point at things. So like this King in Yellow had this effect, and this guy's like transforming it into this other mythology that involves like the rightful king of America.
Right. Well, even that story, as much as we've written it off, is super relevant to our times, And I think we dipped into that a little bit in our previous episode. But the more I think about it, the more that's true, The way that narratives control our reality and the way that, very QAnon, I don't know.
Yeah. And again, I wish I had a more eloquent way to talk about it, but that one's like not just the King in Yellow, but also just internalized concepts of history as a story we tell ourselves.
Right.
Of, society as it's built around us.
Every day I come home from work and I check the book. I go right to it and I memorize the names and the lineage. And
yeah, it's what helps ground him in like the world that's changing in such a crazy way.
Yeah, I pour myself a big glass of water, smoke a little dab, and then I just read about the lineage of the kings of America, traced all the way back to the great one in Carcosa. And
anyway, you seem to be living in a world that wants everyone to kill themselves, but you can just think back and think, no, I'm gonna be the king. I'm the rightful emperor. I'm gonna serve the King in Yellow, and everything's gonna work out for me.
Right. I mean, to be honest with you, that's what I have to tell myself to get to work every morning, so...
Yeah, maybe some people just need to tell themselves that nothing can harm the soul.
Yeesh. Yeah. Oh, to be that wrong, though.
Okay, we've been recording for... The fuck?
Yeah, do we want to, announce our next week plans?
Okay, that's probably have enough there.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're all... Do we have anything to add about King in Yellow... Or about any individual story?
I don't know. I not specifically though. I think we ought to leave the door open to reading more out of this book eventually. Just I think it's very quickly going to shift sort of contexts though away from the kind of stuff we've been currently reading. But yeah. I'm interested. I like him. I like Chambers.
Yeah, great writer. He can do a straightforward chase scary story and
right.
Emotionally messy love story.
My hypothesis that everyone that surrounds Lovecraft was better at what he did than Lovecraft just continues to be validated. It's so good. I don't know.
Yeah, he's good at concepts. I don't know. We're gonna have to hit up the way we talk about Lovecraft. We're gonna have to hit him up at some point soon.
Yeah. Mountains of Madness could be a good one. I think it's just the right length to kind of dig into over the course of 2 episodes. But just a thought.
Yeah, that's a 2-parter for sure.
Yeah, something like that. But so next week we are doing a movie night. I think we're gonna cover 2 movies we decided. I know that one of them we have a title for, right? Because it's on Shudder. We will be watching V or Vi. I don't know how you pronounce that. How do you pronounce that?
We'll find out when we watch the movie.
Right. It's we actually read the in the pre-podcast days we actually read the short story.
The story.
I keep wanting to call it like a myth because it's written so mythologically. The
folk tale.
Yeah, but it's straight up just some dude wrote that. It's not.
Damn, Russians are just
Yeah, they're just Well, let's be careful on that front.
In terms of people who are good at wielding words.
Yes, phenomenal at that. Yeah, phenomenal at that. But and then I think another movie. I assume we'll just put that in the description because unless you know off the top of your head what that'll be, I
thought Mad God.
Oh yeah, do we have a way to get that?
That's on Shudder.
Okay,
that's on Shudder too.
Shudder something. Well, we can talk about this off the.
Before we go, let's take some guesses about how VIY is pronounced, and we'll see who's closest to being right when we watch the movie.
Okay, I'm vying for Vi. Yeah.
Oh, I'm gonna say Wee.
Yeah, I think that seems correct. I don't know what else it could be.